warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight comes from the battlefield, with Russia pounding Ukraine with drones and missiles. Where do things stand as far as the peace framework is concerned? Will Kyiv be forced into that forced deal? We dissect all the developments for you and tell you more about what's being said. Also on the show for you tonight, a Chinese private company claims to be one of the first in the world to mass produce low-cost hypersonic missiles. We tell you all about the implications and what is known so far as per the claims. A long-running custody battle has once again triggered national outrage in Malaysia. We are getting you the complete story in just a bit. Russia's war machine continues to keep the pressure on Ukraine. Russian troops are striking harder than they have in weeks, punishing Ukrainian cities and igniting new concerns about how much more the country can actually endure. Overnight in Zaporizhzhia, the sky lit up with missile trails and the roar of incoming drones. By morning, emergency crews found entire blocks blasted open. Firefighters wrestled with walls of flames surging from the shattered buildings. At least 18 people were injured, though the authorities warn the actual number could climb as they sift through the wreckage. They say that the residential district was hit 11 times. Apartment towers, gas stations, small businesses, homes all torn open in the dark. 31 multi-story buildings took damage, along with 20 private houses, making it one of the worst barrages the city has absorbed in months. In fact, that's not even all. A massive Russian drone and missile assault targeted the Naftogaz gas facility. This is in central Ukraine. Scattered remnants of the Shahed drones littered the reservoir designated for storing tanks of liquefied propane gas. In fact, nearly a month after the October 30th attack, several tanks were empty and in ruins. Russia has targeted Ukrainian gas extraction this year in a bid to hurt morale and also force Ukraine to import large quantities of expensive gas, which it can ill afford. Without the attacks, Ukraine would be able to cover the overwhelming majority of its consumption using its domestic extraction. Two devastating attacks on Ukraine's gas extraction facilities in March and October, meaning that the country must import an additional 4.4 billion cubic meters this winter. 4.4 billion cubic meters. And the thing is, behind the scenes, Ukrainian officials are saying this energy crisis has become a major factor in the peace talks. As per the officials, speaking anonymously to news agencies, the Trump administration is pushing hard for a deal, and the current leverage that Russia holds in the war is shaping just about every conversation. Remember, these attacks coming at a moment when the United States is pushing forward on a peace proposal that has raised alarm across Ukraine. With the war grinding towards its fourth year, Washington insists this is the closest the sides have come to talk since the war started. But many in Kyiv fear the deal could force Ukraine into concessions it cannot safely make. Meanwhile, in Moscow, the Kremlin confirmed that Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff will travel to Russia next week, accompanied by multiple senior U.S. officials. They are expected to discuss the U.S. peace framework, the plan that was leaked last week, and immediately raised fears that Washington might try and pressure Kyiv into accepting terms heavily tilted towards Moscow. And Trump is telling reporters the talks are making progress and also claims that Moscow has already agreed to concessions, though he has not named them. He has backed off on his earlier Thanksgiving deadline, remember, but also maintains he wants a deal soon. And he suggested Russia has the upper hand on the battlefield, and that some Ukrainian territory might be gotten by Russia anyway, quote unquote. Listen in to the exact words.
This war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, you know. So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing. I think it's great for both. Frankly, I think it's great for both. But Ukraine's got it's a much smaller group of people. They've lost a lot of people. Russia's lost a lot of people, but Russia has a much bigger pool of people.
Now, these remarks have sent shockwaves through Kyiv. As per CNN, Ukrainian officials are pushing back hard against the American narrative of optimism. They say it's simply not true and that only a few issues remain. The Ukrainians are saying that there are three deeply contentious points that could break the entire negotiation. The first, reportedly, is the possible surrender of key Ukrainian territory in the larger Donbas region, including fortified towns that are crucial for Ukraine's defense. The second being, reportedly, the U.S. proposal to limit Ukraine's military to 600,000 troops, a cap that Ukraine strongly opposes. And the third, the most politically sensitive and explosive idea, that Ukraine would renounce its ambition to join the NATO. Now, as per the CNN report, this remains completely unacceptable and would set a dangerous precedent for Russia to dictate the alliances of other nations. These three demands align exactly with Moscow's long-standing objectives, and all three directly clash with Ukraine's core red lines. In the last 3 years of the war, Ukraine has lost tens of thousands of soldiers fighting for the territories at stake. Surrendering them officially could fracture the Ukrainian government and destabilize the country. So even as the U.S. officials try to project confidence, it's clear that some heavy-duty issues still remain. Ukrainian leadership is warning that the path ahead is far from smooth. But till then, Russia seems to be determined to use just about every missile, every drone, every icy winter night to make Ukraine's desperation even worse. What comes out of the backroom talks in Moscow next week is anyone's guess at this point. A lot of questions. They may decide whether this war ends with compromise or with consequences that may reshape Europe for decades to come. A Chinese private company claims to be one of the first in the world to mass-produce low-cost hypersonic missiles, a development that, if true, holds far-reaching implications that could potentially reshape 21st century warfare and the global security landscape. The Beijing-based manufacturer released a video on its official social media channel showing the low-cost hypersonic missile taking flight and striking a target in a desert test zone. The company claims the missile is already rolling off assembly lines at only a tenth of the cost of conventional systems. Once again, a statement that, if accurate, could very well redefine the economics of conflicts altogether. According to the firm, it travels between 500 and 1,300 kilometers, reaches speeds of Mach 5 to Mach 7, and stays powered for up to 6 minutes. its launch platform resembling an ordinary shipping container, further claiming that the missile can identify targets during flight and autonomously maneuver to evade interception. Not just that, the company says the system does not require specialized launch vehicles and can deploy from mobile platforms on land or at sea. It describes the missile as suitable for rapid, precise attacks deep into enemy territory, while also able to conduct high-speed reconnaissance using onboard sensors and real-time data transfer. And there's more. In its video, the firm also purportedly showed simulated images of 8 missiles flying in formation towards Japan, marking multiple impact locations on a digital map, a symbolic display of range and swarm strike capability amid the heightened tensions with Japan over Taiwan. But then this also brings us to the most pertinent question here. How did the company manage to develop such low-cost hypersonic missiles? The firm is saying it cut costs by using off-the-shelf industrial components, automotive-grade chips, and civilian construction materials. It claims its long-term goal is to enable swarms of smart, uncrewed systems, not one or two expensive platforms to dominate future battlefields. The question then is, if hypersonic missiles become as cheap and widespread as drones, how will countries prepare for a world where deterrence and defense could be rewritten almost overnight? What about that scenario? And if the missile is this cost-effective indeed, will terrorists or militant organizations next use the cheap missiles, the cheap Chinese missiles for warfare? And that question comes up because there are many armed groups across the world, especially in West Asia, like Iran-backed Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, that use missiles in conflicts. Even UN-designated terror organizations like the Al-Qaeda are reportedly using surface-to-surface missiles in the Sahel region, for example. And that's the thing. The missile production also breaks from China's long tradition of keeping major military development under the control of state-owned entities. So if China's private sector has already reached mass production, are the world's military powers entering a new phase where hypersonic weapons become accessible at scale rather than reserved for a handful of superpowers? A shift that may even shorten global arms race timelines. And the implications of this, not just limited to terrorist, militant or armed groups, it's also likely to have a significant impact on countries that have invested large sums of capital on hypersonic missile development, like the United States, for example. America, remember, has invested decades and tens of billions of dollars into hypersonic research through defense giants. Despite this, America is only now approaching limited operational capability as China begins mass-producing low-cost hypersonic missiles. The development also at this point raises more questions than answers.
It has taken more than 16 years and we cannot see results.
On to Malaysia now, where a long-running custody battle has once again sparked national outrage as pressure builds up on the police to enforce a court order. The country's Human Rights Commission has urged Malaysia's police chief to immediately carry out a High Court directive to locate Prasanna Diksa, M. Indira Gandhi's child. M. Indira Gandhi lives in Ipoh. The case has been unresolved for 16 years and has become one of Malaysia's most recent heated flashpoints at the intersection of religion, law, parental rights. The latest call for action coming after a powerful public display over the weekend, when M. Indira Gandhi led a 1.8-kilometer march to the federal police headquarters. More than 200 supporters waited for hours, but the police chief never appeared reportedly, despite prior notice. Let's just break this down for you and tell you more about the case itself. It dates back to 2009, when M. Indira Gandhi's then husband, a Hindu who had reportedly converted to Islam, unilaterally changed the religion of their children without her consent, allegedly. He later disappeared with their 11-month-old baby. Reportedly, the dispute quickly grew into a national controversy. In the year 2018, Malaysia's federal court ruled that a child's religion cannot be changed without the agreement of both parents. This decision was seen as a landmark for parental rights. The court also ordered the police to arrest the father and return the child to her mother. But 7 years later, that order remains unenforced. The child is now around 16 years old and has not been found. Suhakam says the failure to execute the court's directive is a serious breach of duty. It undermines the rule of law and weakens public trust in law enforcement. The commission also saying the police have the resources and the authority to act, and this continued delay is unacceptable. But then there are questions that remain unanswered. Where is M. Indira Gandhi's child? Why has a court order in her case still not been executed? For many Malaysians, the persistent uncertainty is not just a personal tragedy for one family. It's an entire test of Malaysia's justice system in a way, and its ability to actually protect the rights of every child there. And before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Getting you the latest on the Pakistan-Afghanistan tensions that are boiling over. Now with Pakistan also warning Afghanistan of total collapse. We tell you more about that warning. How does your brain change over time? Are there specific points when the changes happen? Getting you the complete story. You don't want to miss this. Is there hope on the horizon for those battling leukemia? We tell you all that you need to know. All this lined up for you. Nearly 6 months since the launch of India's Operation Sindoor, stories of valor of the Indian Armed Forces continue to come in. In another such instance, newly revealed details telling us that India's security forces quietly prevented an attack by Pakistan on the Uri hydroelectric power project and foiled Islamabad's sabotage plot planned just hours after India launched Operation Sindoor. According to a statement from the CISF, Pakistan initiated heavy shelling and attempted to deploy armed drones targeting the strategic hydropower facility in Jammu and Kashmir. The dam is located close to the line of control on the Jhelum River in Baramulla district and is reportedly one of India's most valuable and vulnerable energy assets in the region. Under the leadership of Commandant Ravi Yadav, a 19-member CISF team reinforced bunkers, secured weapon stockpiles, intercepted multiple drones, and maintained uninterrupted communication systems, even while Pakistan's shelling continued. In the midst of the attack, they also evacuated 250 civilians living around the installation, reportedly, all without incurring a single casualty. CISF officials saying Pakistan considered the dam a priority target due to its location and strategic significance. But swift intelligence sharing and also the rapid ground response ensured that the attack failed before any structural or operational damage could occur. More than 6 months after the launch of Operation Sindoor, this incident standing out as one of the many decisive moments of resilience. The CISF has now honored all 19 personnel at its New Delhi headquarters for what it called exceptional bravery, extraordinary courage, and safeguarding vital national assets. The fractured relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan have taken a sharp turn for the worse, with rhetoric, accusations, warnings reaching a new peak. What started out as border tensions and diplomatic disputes has now escalated into a full-blown war of words, and now a stark message from Islamabad has raised concern. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif has issued one of Islamabad's sharpest warnings to Afghanistan. In an interview to Geo News, he reportedly said that Afghanistan is heading towards total international isolation and an eventual collapse if the current tensions continue to escalate. In fact, he said Pakistan and other regional countries want peace and stability, but are losing patience with Afghanistan's consistently uncompromising position. Not just that, he warned that if the situation continues to worsen, regional powers could step in to protect their own interests, which could leave Afghanistan completely isolated on the international stage. And this follows serious allegations from Kabul earlier this week, with the Taliban spokesman accusing the Pakistani forces of launching an air raid in Khost province that he said killed 9 children and a woman. He warned that Afghanistan would retaliate at the right time. However, Pakistan's military said it carried out no such actions and dismissed the claims. And on Tuesday, a Pakistani minister added fuel to the fire, claiming the Afghan Taliban and the TTP jointly planned the suicide bombing at the Islamabad District Court. He said several men were arrested within 48 hours of the attack, and accused the perpetrators of moving repeatedly between the two countries. Afghanistan has not yet responded to these allegations. Tensions have been escalating since October, when the deadly border clashes killed around 70 people on both sides. 3 rounds of talks hosted by Qatar and Turkey in Istanbul failed to produce any lasting agreement. Shortly after Pakistan declared those talks over, the Afghan Taliban suspended trade ties with Islamabad, remember, further deepening the rift. And as both the sides continue to dig in, issuing warnings, counter-warnings, the region is facing one of the most volatile points since the Taliban returned to power in Kabul. And with tensions on the rise and diplomatic channels drying up in a way, there is growing fear that the situation could spiral further without a clear path back to negotiations. A fresh political storm brewing in Pakistan. Imran Khan's X account cannot run from jail. That's the diktat from Islamabad. Political restrictions tightening as the jailed former Pakistan Prime Minister faces isolation. Reportedly, his party is asking tough questions as to why they are not allowed to meet or communicate with their leader. And in a decisive move, the superintendent of Adiala jail told the Islamabad High Court with authority that former Prime Minister Imran Khan's X account is not operated from inside the prison walls. The PTI founder, remember, remains under surveillance, denied access to all restricted devices, no mobile phones, no internet. Signal jammers reportedly blanket the prison and its perimeter, shutting down any chances of unauthorized communication. And what makes the situation even more complex here is that attempts by PTI leaders, including Imran Khan's sisters and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa chief minister, to secure audiences with the imprisoned leader, have met similar blockades, allegedly. The KPK leader issued 7 appeals to meet Imran Khan, but authorities denied them all. Khan's sisters demand an impartial probe into the brutal police assault on them and PTI supporters last week. Last night, massive protests were held outside Adiala jail for the release of the jailed PTI leader. Shia cleric and senator from Punjab also joined the protests. He called on Pakistanis to unite for Imran Khan's release.
Now all the Pakistanis are uniting. It's now the responsibility of every Pakistani to raise their voice against this grave injustice. We all need to stand united. People are the real strength. Why are we being stopped from meeting?
Despite numerous efforts, access has been consistently denied, further tightening Imran Khan's political isolation in a way. Official channels remain silent on the reasons, and thereby the tensions have only escalated within party ranks. PTI vocally contesting the restrictions, calling them draconian, accusatory, insisting that communication is vital to their political movement. Yet government authorities stand firm, maintaining the siege on the former Prime Minister's interaction with the outside world. 73-year-old Imran Khan has been held in custody since August 2023. Authorities have charged former Pakistan Prime Minister there in around 200 cases, but Khan claims they are all politically motivated. The standoff sharpening the political showdown while the courtroom dramas and the bail hearings continue. And the fortress of Adiala jail remains tight as ever, locking down not just a man, but also in a way the digital voice that continues to be questioned. Now, Khan's political rival and PMLN chief has also lashed out, not just at Imran Khan and his party, but the Pakistan establishment during Imran Khan's time. Sharif has questioned the credibility of the 2018 elections that the PTI won and ousted Nawaz Sharif from power. Now the former Prime Minister demands accountability for those in the establishment that brought his successor to power. No irony lost here. Whichever party in Pakistan loses an election accuses the winning side and the establishment of rigging the election. In February 2024, the election, PTI levied the same accusations against PMLN. In 2018, the Sharif brothers accused the PTI of rigging the election. And again, Nawaz Sharif has brought the allegations back. The entire plot has come full circle, it seems, and has put Pakistan's political instability once again under the spotlight. India is observing the Constitution Day today, that is the 26th of November. It's an annual observance that commemorates the official adoption of the Indian Constitution on this day back in 1949, establishing India as a sovereign and democratic republic. The Indian President, Prime Minister participated in the celebrations at the Central Hall of the Old Parliament in New Delhi. In 2015, the government officially notified the 26th of November as the Constitution Day to promote constitutional values among the citizens.
इस ऐतिहासिक केंद्रीय कक्ष में हार्दिक स्वागत, अभिनंदन एवं आप सभी को शत शत वंदन।
Before 2015, the 26th of November was formally observed as the National Law Day in honor of Bhimrao Ambedkar, who was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution, also the first law minister of independent India. The drafting of the Constitution was an intensive and inclusive process. The Constitution Assembly, the body assigned to draft the Constitution, took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days to complete the drafting of the Constitution. In the process of making the Constitution of India, over 7,600 amendments were proposed, and later 2,400 amendments were accepted after the Assembly spent 114 days discussing the draft. While the Constitution was adopted on the 26th of November 1949, 2 months later, that is on the 26th of January 1950, the Constitution came into effect. This date was chosen because the Congress's Purna Swaraj resolution had been declared on the same date in 1930. And as a result, the 26th of January is celebrated as Republic Day in India. Celebrations today also saw the participation of the Vice President, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, members of Parliament from both the houses, among others. The President of India led the reading of the preamble to the Constitution during that program. The translated version of the Constitution of India was released in 9 languages, including Malayalam, Marathi, Punjabi, Kashmiri, Telugu. The commemorative booklet, meanwhile, Art and Calligraphy in the Indian Constitution, also released during that program. Two of India's neighbors slipping back into financial trouble. Pakistan is under intense scrutiny from the IMF for deep-rooted corruption. In Bangladesh, a World Bank report saying poverty is rising again after years of progress. Let's just break this down for you and tell you what the latest assessments are actually showing. The International Monetary Fund's new governance diagnostic says Pakistan's economic system is being held back by elite capture, privileged access to resources, and weak accountability. Not just that, the report says that the country will remain trapped in economic stagnation, dependency, widening inequality. The IMF says Pakistan's economy is being held back by deep corruption and elite control. A small group continues to shape policies and benefit disproportionately. Whereas the report also highlights that military-linked groups like the Fauji Foundation hold massive assets, and decades of land allotments have further concentrated power in the hands of senior officers. The IMF warns corruption has eroded growth, weakened tax collection, and left public services underfunded. It further says Pakistan needs transparency, stronger institutions, and tighter checks on the military commercial power to avoid long-term stagnation. In Bangladesh, meanwhile, the situation is very different but equally worrying. According to the World Bank, the country's GDP growth has slowed to around 4%, almost like the COVID-19 period. In fact, Bangladesh's economy has slowed. The World Bank says it has pushed nearly 2 million people back into poverty. The poverty rate expected to rise to 21.2%. More than 60 million people remain just above the poverty line, highly exposed to inflation and job losses. The report showing Bangladesh's poverty reduction model was always fragile. Slower growth now delivers much weaker poverty gains. Job quality has fallen. Labor income's role in lifting people out of poverty has dropped sharply. With low savings, limited safety nets, even a small shock can push families back down. In sharp contrast, India's poverty trajectory is moving the other way. World Bank estimates showing that poverty has dropped from over 60% to about 28% in a decade, and more than 248 million people have moved out of multidimensional poverty, making India one of the rare bright spots in the region. At least 14 people have died after a major fire broke out in several blocks of a residential estate in Hong Kong. Officials saying the death toll could rise further. These images showing that massive blaze engulfing an entire high-rise building. Firefighters battling fierce flames that swept through multiple floors. Several residents fear trapped inside their apartments. And this picture, amid all the images out there, has gone viral on the internet. This man distraught after claiming his wife was trapped in that high-rise building. Wong is a 71-year-old man who was photographed crying in distress.
出邊都嗌曬要火燭啊！走啊走啊走啊！咁啊走出嚟咯。即係你住附近嘅？我直情係而家燒緊嗰座咯。唔係附近啦，我第三座。好大煙啊！已經着啦，已經燒啦，第5座已經燒曬啦，即係個好猛火，啲火勢已經吹過嚟啦，已經燒着咗我哋嗰邊啦，已經。我住第2座嘅，所以我睇住佢由第6座燒到第5座，一路燒過嚟，佢都唔淋水。 我都唔見有啲消防去射水喎，我哋而家真係好慘啊，都唔知想點啦而家。
Now, according to the authorities, the fire started around 2:51 p.m. local time. The flames spread rapidly along the bamboo scaffolding surrounding the towers. The blaze was quickly upgraded to a number 4 alarm, which is the second highest emergency level there. The housing estate consisting of 8 residential towers. Authorities have urged nearby residents to stay indoors, close the windows and avoid the area. Hong Kong's Transport Department has shut down stretches of the highway, diverting all traffic as firefighting continues. Emergency crews working floor to floor to evacuate the people. And Laura Westbrook getting us this report from Hong Kong. She has been getting us those updates and she was reporting live when this blaze engulfed the entire building.
Well, as you can see, the fire is very much still burning and firefighters are trying to get it under control. Now, we can smell smoke in the air. We can also hear occasional pops, and debris has fallen from some of these blocks as the fire continues to burn. Now, at least 4 blocks are still on fire. There are reports that more have caught fire. There are 8 blocks in this housing estate altogether.
Beneath the rugged landscapes of Ethiopia, ancient forces are constantly changing. Beneath the surface, a colossal volcanic eruption in the country ripped through our planet. Our next report explaining how there is a slow but relentless tearing apart of Africa's crust taking place. Take a look.
A silent monster is waking beneath Africa, and the continent is starting to crack. In Ethiopia, the Haile Gubi volcano erupted on Sunday. It sent a cloud of ash and smoke high into the air, prompting flight cancellations as hot clouds drifted toward other countries as far as India and China. The long-dormant Haile Gubi volcano, located in the Afar region near the Eritrean border, erupted for the first time in nearly 12,000 years.
That in this specific case, since it is Ertale range, which is Ertale is a magma lake, as you know. So the magma is not very deep, it is just close to the surface. So this eruption went off with no much earthquake activity, but it was energetic enough to cause very huge plume, volcanic plume in the atmosphere.
Volcanoes, faults, and fire are rewriting the map of our planet in real time. And now, scientists say a brand new ocean is being born under our feet. A dramatic geological shift is ripping through East Africa. A tear so vast, it could redraw global geography. Deep inside Ethiopia's Afar region, one of the world's hottest volcanic zones has revealed the raw mechanics of how a continent splits. Massive fissures are carving the earth apart, and the ground is stretching like pulled dough. Over the next 5 to 10 million years, geologists project that the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden will flood the entire 6,000-kilometer-long rift system. The Horn of Africa will become a massive island continent. Landlocked nations like Uganda and Zambia will find themselves with entirely new coastlines. Scientists say the process mirrors the early stages of the Atlantic Ocean's formation. What we are witnessing today is how continents die and how new worlds are born. Even more astonishing, satellites now track Africa's slow-motion breakup by the millimeter. The rift grows every year, widening along a 3,000-kilometer fault line from Mozambique to Ethiopia. Entire nations may someday stand on opposite sides of a future sea. The Earth is moving, the map is changing, and humanity is watching the birth of a new ocean live in real time. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Berlin's dream of hosting another Olympic Games running into a hard wall of public resistance. There's a lot happening there. A new survey showing a clear majority of residents want it to step back from any bid for the 2036, 2040 or even 2044 Summer Games. The numbers are not close, by the way. According to a poll conducted for a newspaper, 67% of the people saying they oppose the idea of the capital putting its name forward. Only 27% support it, while 6% remain undecided. The results coming at a time when the national debate over a German Olympic bid is only heating up. New Citizens Movement is preparing to launch a referendum of its own at the start of next year. The tension's building up because the timing is tight. Even if the people push for a citywide vote, the earliest a government-organized referendum could take place is 2027. And by then, the German Olympic Sports Confederation will already have made up its decision, its mind. In fact, the DOSB plans to choose Germany's candidate city or region in the third quarter of 2026. And they have not yet decided which edition of the Games, 2036, 2040 or 2044, Germany intends to pursue. Berlin is not alone in that race, by the way. Hamburg, Munich and another region all lining up their pitches. Munich, in fact, is already securing public support, with residents voting in favor of moving ahead. And North Rhine-Westphalia will be holding a referendum in April on whether the Rhine-Ruhr region should proceed. International competition is just as fierce. India, Indonesia, Turkey, Qatar, Chile have all officially announced their intentions to bid for the 2036 Olympics. In Hong Kong, meanwhile, business leaders have floated the idea of a joint bid, also involving National Games co-hosts Macau as well as Shenzhen and Guangzhou, in the name of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area. Still, Berlin's Olympic representatives are not panicking as such, despite the bleak numbers. One of the city's lead Olympic planners insisting enthusiasm will rise once again once the full campaign gets underway. And he argues that the debate is simply part of Berlin's political nature and that big support often emerges at the final stage. In fact, the president of the Berlin State Sports Federation echoing that same viewpoint. He says other internal polls show higher approval and that there is no reason as such to see the new survey as a fatal blow. But he also admits that the results reveal a clear challenge. Public opinion must be shifted, and winning that trust will require action. Planners are saying the city will launch a comprehensive outreach campaign in September 2026, timed to coincide with the DOSB's decision process. They promise targeted efforts to address the criticism, rebuild the confidence, and engage the skeptical residents and their concerns. But history is also looming over this debate. Remember, Germany has hosted the Summer Games twice, in Berlin in 1936 and in Munich in 1972. Several bids since then have collapsed, often because the voters rejected them at the ballot box. So while the Olympic spotlight edges closer, Germany's capital is facing a big question. Can Berlin convince its own citizens before it tries to convince the world?
I just want to tell you this very important. You are hereby unconditionally pardoned.
US President Donald Trump marked the Thanksgiving season with the annual presidential turkey pardon, and he turned the light-hearted tradition into another moment in the spotlight. At the White House, Donald Trump granted ceremonial pardons to 2 turkeys. The birds arrived in Washington in style, staying in a luxury hotel before making an appearance in the briefing room. And after that, they headed outdoors to receive their official freedom from the dinner table. Trump said both the turkeys were receiving a full and unconditional presidential pardon and called it their lucky day.
In a few moments, I will grant a full, absolute, and unconditional presidential pardon to 2 handsome Thanksgiving turkeys, and this is their lucky day. This is a lucky day for them.
But then the event quickly shifted from celebration to becoming a political one in a way. Trump took a swipe at his predecessor, Joe Biden. Listen to this.
Sleepy Joe Biden, he used an auto pen last year for the Turkey's pardon. So I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's Turkey pardons are totally invalid.
And Trump also joked that the birds pardoned during Biden's term, Peach and Blossom, were supposedly headed for processing until he personally stepped in to pardon them as well. He did not even stop there. In the middle of those remarks, he said, quoting, "Where's Hunter?" hinting that Hunter Biden could once again face legal trouble. The US president also used that event to make a remark against the Democratic governor of Illinois, who had opposed the National Guard deployment in Chicago, remember. During that speech, Trump reportedly also insisted that Thanksgiving meals are becoming more affordable under his leadership, a claim that conflicts with some research showing many American households are paying more this year due to inflation. And the president left Washington soon after that ceremony to spend the Thanksgiving holiday at his Florida resort. The human brain is the most powerful machine on the planet, but it never stays the same. It rewires, rebuilds, it reshapes itself in ways that scientists are only now beginning to fully understand. And new research now revealing 4 ages when the brain dramatically transforms. Take a look.
The brain, a 3-pound universe of 86 billion neurons, firing faster than any supercomputer ever built. It stores your past, powers your present, and helps decide your future, all while reshaping itself every second. But beneath this miracle of biology lies a hidden timeline, a sequence of dramatic turning points when the brain quietly reboots its circuitry. And now, scientists have mapped that timeline from birth to age 90. A new study published in Nature has uncovered 4 critical ages, 9, 32, 66, and 83, when the brain undergoes major changes. At age 9, the brain hits its first big transition. Networks responsible for learning and absorbing information reach peak flexibility. It is the age of explosive curiosity, a neurological sweet spot. Then at 32, something surprising happens. The prefrontal cortex. The seat of planning, control, and emotional regulation reorganizes itself. Scientists say it's the moment adulthood truly stabilizes in the brain. The next shift arrives at 66. Cognitive networks begin to work more efficiently, not less. The brain trims unused circuits and strengthens the ones needed for wisdom, pattern recognition, and emotional resilience. And at 83, the brain rewires again, this time focusing on survival, memory preservation, and energy efficiency. Using brain scans from tens of thousands of people, researchers discovered that these age milestones appear consistently across different cultures and continents. It's a global human pattern. Other studies add even more intrigue. A Stanford study shows that memory regions can regenerate even in old age, and scientists in Japan recently mapped tiny lightning bursts that appear milliseconds before a creative idea forms. The message is clear: the brain never stops reinventing itself. It evolves, it adapts, it rewrites who we are 4 times in a lifetime. Bureau Report, WION World is one.
World Test champion South Africa arrived in India and dominated. They secured their first series win on Indian soil in 25 years. But it wasn't just the cricket making headlines. It was one word from the head coach, a word that sparked quite a storm. He said he wanted India to grovel. What exactly did he say and why? On day 4 of the second test, South Africa had India on the mat and India win was out of the question. Yet the Proteas kept batting and did not declare until 40 minutes into the final session, setting out a massive 549-run target. When Conrad faced the press, this was his explanation. I'm quoting from what he said. We wanted India to spend as much time on their feet out in the field. We wanted them to really grovel, to steal a phrase, bat them completely out the game, and then say to them, welcome, and survive on the last day, an hour this evening. Conrad has turned South African cricket around since taking over in January 2023, even guiding them to the World Test Championship title. He is respected, he's articulate and rarely controversial as such, and which is why that statement has left many surprised. On the surface, that word means to be submissive or to bow down. That's what the dictionary tells us, at least. But the word also comes in loaded with a lot of history. Conrad knew that, and that's why he added to steal a phrase right after using that word. Here's the context. In 1976, England captain infamously said he wanted to make the West Indies grovel. Clive Lloyd's team, remember, took deep offense. As Lloyd later said, the word is one guaranteed to raise the blood pressure of any black man, quote unquote. Coming from a South African-born captain. Greg's comment carried a sharp racial undertone as well, and what followed was a legendary response. The West Indies crushed England 3-0. So when Conrad used that same word this week, it struck a nerve, even among South Africa's own greats. Fast bowling legend Dale Steyn publicly criticized the comment. He said, I'm quoting, I'm not on that boat. I don't like that. I almost don't even want to make a comment about it. There are certain things you just don't say. There's stigma attached to it. It just wasn't necessary. Maybe I pick up his tone now. It's not as harsh as Greg's, but that does not matter. You just don't use words like that. Toss it. You don't have to say it. Sorry, but that's disappointing, quote unquote. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off, leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks very much for watching.